Welcome to the Earth Science 2 Learning Set 1 review video. This is part 2. So when we look at our success criteria sheet, here we're trying to go through and answer number 4, 5, and 6. Now, number 4 says, review the readings 2.2 and 3.3, be able to answer the questions from the readings. And I think you even need to go beyond that. You have to understand the readings. And reading 2.2 was, why does conduction matter? And reading 3.3 was, why learn about convection? And both of these readings set the foundation for what conduction is and what convection is. So you have to be able to answer the questions from the readings, but you also have to be able to understand the readings. Now, both of those we went over in class. We talked about the major points. And especially with reading 2.2, some of you were caught, well, not quite reading the whole thing, because there was the whole part where you're supposed to make a diagram at the end, and about half of you didn't make that diagram, which tells me, or at least leads me to believe, that you didn't really read the reading too carefully. You kind of faked your annotation. So I would reread these articles before the test, knowing what conduction is, knowing what convection is, the differences between them, and how they work is a key part to doing well on this test. Now, number 5 on your success criteria sheet is be able to explain the main ideas from labs 2.2, 3.1, and 3.2. So 2.2, a little heat from me to you. This was where you used a shortening and you had the Bunsen burners, and it was a lab basically on conduction and how conduction works. So you're going to have to be able to explain that, know what the main ideas are, and again, here it goes back to the reading, knowing what conduction is. 3.1, how do differences in temperature affect air masses? This is where we had the convection boxes in the incense, and where you had the candle underneath one of the boxes, and how the warm air, or at least the candle underneath one of the tubes, not underneath the box, and how the warm air would rise, and then the colder air would sink down on the other side. And if you used your flashlights, you could actually see the incense completely going through the box, down the side without the candle and up the side with the candle. Now, 3.2, this was where you had the two plastic 2-liter bottles, and you had the ice water, the cold water, and the warm water, and they had the balloons on top, and you saw what happens when warm air expands and when cold air contracts. So again, you have to be able to explain these. You have to know the key ideas behind each one of these labs to do well on this test. So I'd review those, look over them, make sure you can explain how the convection boxes work, make sure you can explain why the 2-liter bottle with the balloon on top that was in the warm water expanded, and why the water or the air inside the bottle contracted when it was put into the cold water. So make sure you can do those things. And the last thing I want to talk about in this review video is be able to explain how the Earth's atmosphere is heated. So this is what we started pretty much on day 1 of this unit, taking a look at how the atmosphere gets heated. So when we talk about this, make sure you talk about how energy from the sun heats the Earth's surface. It's absorbed. The sun itself does not heat a lot of the atmosphere. Some of it might, but the air is a really good insulator. In the wavelength of the solar radiation coming down, the gases in the atmosphere don't readily absorb it, but the ground does. Now, the ground will re-emit some of this heat back up into the atmosphere, and these wavelengths the atmosphere can easily absorb. So the atmosphere gets heated by the Earth. So the Earth absorbs that radiant energy from the sun, and through conduction it heats up the air masses or the molecules that are next to the Earth. Then once those molecules are heated, once the atmosphere is heated, then through convection that air rises. So energy from the sun heats the Earth's surface. It's absorbed. The atmosphere comes in contact with the Earth's surface. It's heated through conduction. That's the main point I'm going to be looking for. And I'm also looking for how less dense warm air then will rise up, and the cooler air takes its place via convection to be heated next then. So make sure you can explain it. Now again, this all comes back to those 2 readings again on conduction and on convection. So make sure you can explain it. For example, the one with the convection where they talked about the oven and how the cookies on the top get heated. So make sure you can explain things from the readings. You know, they talked about boiling a hard-boiled egg, or not, it wasn't hard boiled, but boiling an egg. So it is hard boiled. Where, what does it have to do with conduction? Where the flame is on the pot. The pot, that's conduction, and the pot is touching water, that's conduction, and the water is touching the egg, that's conduction. So taking a look at how conduction works in all these. So again, convection and conduction are two huge parts of this test, and make sure you can explain everything from labs 2.2, 3.1, and 3.2. Again, as always, ask questions before the test if you have any. Thanks.